Welcome to Verify in Field, the Millwork podcast. Your host, Jacob Edmond, CEO of Ductworks, will be interviewing experts in the industry to bring you insights and knowledge about the latest trends, techniques, and challenges in millwork. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the world of millwork. Here's Jacob.
All right. Good morning, Vicky. Thank you for joining us here on Verify in Field. We have today Vicky Borkowski, who is CEO and owner of Millwork Recruiting Source. And today we're going to talk about recruiting in the millwork industry specifically and what that looks like engaging an outside recruiter. Thank you, Vicky, for joining us. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me.
So to get started, I want to see if you can share first a little bit about your background, how you got started in the millwork industry, and just your path to where you are now as CEO and owner of Millwork Recruiting Source.
Sure. So my career has primarily been in sales within the construction industry. I've been in regional sales management roles, national sales management roles, primarily for manufacturers that were providing a product in the construction industry. And I used to travel quite extensively, probably was on the road about 75 to 80% of the time. And I came to a time in my life where I got a little burned out and wanted to pursue something new. And lo and behold, I got a phone call from a recruiter and had asked, would you consider recruiting? They wanted to know what my experience with recruiters was, and it wasn't all that great, but I met with the owner and interviewed and found myself recruiting and went through a strenuous process of learning the trade, learning how to recruit from very tenured individuals within the recruiting industry. And I was very fortunate to learn the right way of recruiting. Did a lot of listening, a lot of learning. And so after my training, one of my colleagues had asked me, would you consider coming on to the construction team and recruiting in the architectural millwork industry? I didn't know what architectural millwork was. And so I said, why not? And I inundated myself with as much research as I possibly could to learn about architectural millwork, align myself with some of the trade organizations and pick up the phone and talk to tenured people in the industry to learn as much as I possibly could. I was familiar with what project managers, estimators, engineers did. And so I had a base of that. But then talking about production leadership, I didn't know what production did, but I learned. And so very fortunate with the connections I've made to understand the industry. However, I'm continually learning something new and growing in the industry. So that's how I fell into recruiting in architectural millwork.
And about how many years ago was that?
I started recruiting 7 years ago.
Okay.
And in March of this year, after doing some soul searching and thinking about what was next for me, I made the jump and launched my own recruiting company.
Millwork Recruiting Source. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was done a lot with the support of family, clients, customers. I reviewed the data that I had at my disposal of successes, failures, and felt confident enough that I could do this on my own.
Yeah. Amazing. So through that process, through your experience over the last 7 years, are there any specific challenges you faced along the way that have shaped your path to where you're at now?
As far as challenges on the outside of being a recruiter as a whole, or just
Or just things like challenges with recruiting specifically in millwork that maybe you've pivoted or learned from on how to do it better.
I will tell you, by far, recruiting in general, though, let me note, has been the most grueling career in the beginning, and it can be continually, but also the most rewarding. I think as I grow and develop in doing this, learning from the failures, learning from not asking certain questions and implementing that in my line of recruiting and working with my clients. You just continually develop your line of questioning. And so that can always be a challenge because sometimes you misstep. If you, I think I'm pretty regimented in my line of questioning, but it's ever evolving. And if you miss a step, that can come back to bite you.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Talking now a little bit, we've heard a little bit about your path, how you got to where you're at, and earlier this year you started Millwork Recruiting Source. What does the millwork recruiting process look like today? And what is the landscape of millwork recruiting? Obviously, there's other companies out there that provide this service. There's a lot more companies probably that try to handle this internally, right? And do their own recruiting and hiring. For those of our listeners who maybe aren't, this isn't front of mind for them. What does this recruiting look like in millwork today?
The landscape of millwork industry recruiting is primarily positions in project management, estimating, engineering. As you are well aware yourself, engineering, CAD drafting is the bottleneck. Every company is seeking those professionals. My method, I'm a contingency recruiter, which means there's no financial investment upfront. I essentially work for free until the client hires one of my candidates. There are some times where I do work on a retained basis where there's money upfront. In those instances, and just contingency recruiting fits nicely in the millwork industry. The
Yes.
landscaping is companies, leadership doesn't have the time because they're running the ship. They're manning the ship. They don't have HR personnel that are experienced in recruiting to go out to the marketplace and find these people. And so we've had great success since I recruit exclusively. I'm not going to present somebody that comes from food and beverage manufacturing necessarily. It's always going to be either cabinetry, casework, millwork, those sectors. And so that speaks highly to these individuals in leadership that are looking for talent. And it's a very small niche. Yes, there's a few of us that recruit in the millwork industry, some that have done it longer than I have. And we're all there to support one another, collaborate, I think. But those are the roles that are primarily needed in recruiting. I go all the way up to executive level, but those are few and far between.
Right. And I assume those type of roles are the ones that are more likely to be the retained searches.
Sometimes
So, what are the key steps involved in finding and placing talent in the millwork industry? Obviously, you're constantly networking, you're constantly building both placement options and companies as well as candidates. I assume there's a lot of finding people that maybe don't have advancement opportunities in one company and they're looking for it and they end up finding it in another. But what does that process look like? What are the key steps in finding and placing talent for you?
sure. It all starts with communication. My approach in recruiting is very collaborative in nature. I'm here to find out what the pain point is with my clients and go to the market and find that. And with that being said, I require full communication, full transparency, and partnership with my clients. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly.
Mhm.
I need to know specifically what is this person going to be doing on a daily, weekly basis? What are the critical success factors you need to see in order to hire somebody? Where has your search taken you? Have you done any recruiting for the role? I need to know about benefits and salary and compensation. How much is too much? Without their involvement and participation up front, I'm going into the dark. It's too much of a challenge. And so if a client can't participate in that conversation, that search is going to be difficult because I don't know where they're willing to bend on some requirements of the role. So that's first and foremost in the beginning stage. In establishing also expectations, communication, follow up, debriefs, all of that. I also share with my clients when I present a candidate, it is, in my professional opinion, that they have the qualifications to meet the needs of that role and to at least have a phone interview. You have to engage. One thing that I have learned is not everyone is a awesome resume writer, right? So my responsibility to my client is to share the story of the candidate and then for them to interview them. After that, so I have the full job order, and how I go out to market is after 7 years, I've established a great network of individuals in the industry. So either I start by sending a mass email to in my database of all the people that have their contact information. I do social media postings, whether it be LinkedIn or on Instagram or on Facebook, I pick up the phone. It's not everyone in my database do I have their email address. And it's just easier to engage over the phone. I think a good recruiter wants to engage over the phone and have a conversation.
Yep. So do you, when a company, like a new company reached out to you and they're looking to fill a role, are they usually coming to you with a well written out job description and a
No,
description of what they need?
no.
Yeah. So that's what I would imagine. I would
Um,
imagine that's probably even more so in millwork, right? I don't know how other industries you recruited for before, but like you mentioned, people like in our industry, there's not a lot of people don't go to university for millwork, right? And very rarely. And so they're not coming out with, hey, I've got this very nice resume that I was taught to write in school for this specific role I'm looking for. And same on companies. A lot of times they're coming to you in a time of distress and need, I imagine, versus, hey, we've got this new role just opened up and we've got this nicely written job description. So what does that usually look like when companies come to you? And then how do you guide them towards writing a job description and what they need to actually fill this role?
so I would say, here, let me define two different ways of talking about a position. One is in that capacity where somebody comes to me and says, okay, I need a production manager. If it's a new client, I ask for an hour of their time and talk all about the role, about the company. We talk about the technical aspects of it and the culture aspects. Generally, companies do not have a job description outline. And so I will put together a job description just from the history or the information that they provide me about the company, the history of the company, and then I'll generalize what the responsibilities and qualifications would be. I have a new tool at my disposal that can generate a job description that may be a little bit different than what I've been accustomed to presenting, which is fun right now. So just a different twist on the wording in the job description. Be seeing more. That's a lot of fun. And that all has to do with AI.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Awesome.
And the other way of doing a job posting or generating a job description is, so if a client hasn't come to me about a new job, I will reach out to a company and present a summary of a candidate that I'm taking to market. I may have let's say, a production manager that has 15 years of experience, started on the bench. They manage a team of 20, is responsible for P&L, and quantify their successes. Would you be interested in learning more about them? Generally, that will facilitate a lot of interest from a potential client, even though they may not be looking for that person. And then we engage in a conversation about the candidate and how I go about recruiting in a partnership.
So a lot of the times, or often it sounds like it's the other way where you have a candidate that you bring to your network of companies and you're not even really at that point having to define the job description. You've already
Yeah.
got the person, the role, and then
Yep.
companies are just interested. So that's probably a dynamic that people maybe not familiar with. I would imagine. How much of your engagements happen that way now, would you say?
I would say it's increasing probably 40%.
Uh,
I've had great success. Yeah. And that's one thing too, when I do have an existing partnership with my clients across the country, I'll reach out to them first
right.
and let them know, hey, listen, this person's looking, they are motivated to move forward on a new opportunity and they have interest in your company. Would you want to learn more about them?
And at that point, you already, I imagine, have a pretty good idea. Hey, this client I've worked with in the past would probably be a good fit either by region or by the type of work they do or, what they've talked to it before. The work you're doing, you're constantly building those profiles and that information in your network.
You got it.
Shifting a little bit, and you hinted at this a little bit with this new AI tool you're using for job description. I want to talk about trends and emerging practices and things that are changing more recently with how you're recruiting in the industry. You mentioned AI. I imagine that's very recent and a new tool that
It
didn't
is.
exist 7 years ago, obviously, right? How is that changing your process and improving things for you?
It is a trial and error process right now as AI and for the recruiting industry. It's a tool. Being a new business owner, I'm broadening myself in what tools I have available to me that I didn't necessarily have before. And I'm learning quickly that some are not as helpful as others. And I think it has to do because of very niche industry that I recruit in. Right. But then I have a AI tool for me for generating different type of job description. So that is going to continually evolve and it's going to take time to learn those tools and programs that are available and also communicate and network with my former colleagues and other people within the recruiting industry. It doesn't have to be construction and finding what tools have worked for them and what the successes have been for them and or what's not working.
Awesome. Are there any other things that have changed over the years? Obviously, there was like a significant milestone, I imagine, of COVID, and have things significantly changed just since then? Obviously, there's a big push towards remote work, and in our industry, it's still manufacturing based, still heavily on site, but I imagine there's certain roles that have shifted in the
Mhm.
way you've been able to recruit, the types of people, candidates you can fill. Are there things that have evolved on that side?
Sure. Yes. During COVID and afterward, I was inundated with candidates reaching out to me seeking remote only opportunities. I am still getting a request for that, but not as dominant as it was before. CAD drafting can be remote. Estimating now can be remote for certain companies, especially with energy implementation. But I understand fully the commitment that companies, clients want for candidates to be in the office, in the shop, primarily because of the communication required in all of the various departments. Project management needs to communicate with production and estimating and engineering. And I believe it can be difficult to have those conversations over Teams all the time,
Yep.
as opposed to getting up and walking into the shop and having a conversation. I understand that. I also understand how the industry is evolving. Sometimes we have to accommodate those changes.
Right. So in that, obviously, there's certain limitations on candidates, the amount of candidates you can find with the skills and qualifications for what a client's looking for. What are some of the most important skills and qualifications that you look for in candidates, or things that might help, thinking from the candidate side, them be successful in landing a role in this industry? Maybe
I
some of the most
believe
sought after.
when it comes to roles in project management or estimating, I am asked quite often for somebody that came from the shop and has grown organically. So that is a great asset. in somebody's background. I am seeing more requests for PMP certification for project managers. That can only benefit you. So I believe the most required skill is somebody that is not pigeonholed in the way they have done things forever, that they are open to change, open to learning, open to listening, and taking new lessons and moving forward in their career. I think those are paramount. And then taking the time to learn new tools, whether it is energy. I think that is going to be the game changing program in the industry. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I talk to a lot of engineers that are self teaching them. They may be cabinet vision and now they want to learn microvellum because microvellum is more prevalent and they're self teaching themselves.
And I assume that when
Same,
you speak to candidates and they're telling you that, hey, I'm self-teaching myself, that's a positive trait
yeah,
that you're okay.
yes.
What about cultural fit and company culture? How often does that come up, and what concerns maybe, or how do you recruit for that? How do you interview for that? And talking with a company, how do you extract what's important to them and finding a fit from a culture standpoint?
That's great. That's a great question. That is becoming more and more important. Once again, as leadership changes and evolves, they want individuals that are team oriented, that are problem solvers, that don't want to be a problem of this, be a part of the solution, not the problem. They want managers that are mentors and leaders that don't lead by steer, because that was a problem years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in when I recruit candidates, I want to know what their motivators are, right? First and foremost, if they are talking to me and pursuing something new, to make sure that a company's culture aligns with a candidate desire of what a company culture is. I ask questions about what's important to them, meaning what is their ideal job? What is their ideal company by industry, by culture, by company size, by management, style, all of that, and align that with the companies that are looking for those type of individuals. I always share with my candidates, whatever you are pursuing, this isn't about me. This is about finding the right fit for you. I have the best interest in my clients. And so I need to make that match. If a candidate is telling me that they want a plant management or production management role, but they've seen a project management posting of mine in, let's say, in California, but they don't want to move west of the Mississippi and they're currently in Texas, it's not going to be a fit. So we have to identify specifically what's important to them by title, by company culture, company industry, company size, what is their ideal boss, all of it to align that with my client's position that they have open.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot more than just job description and skill fit. There's regional location, where they're at in their career, I assume.
Right.
You touched on this a little bit, but talking about challenges, there's, in my own words, I think there's very much an old guard and a new guard, or an old way of doing things in a new way from a leadership and a management, especially in this industry. And I'd say our industry is probably lagging behind in how fast we've shifted from that. But there is a new wave of younger owners that are coming in with a new management style and a new way of doing things. And that is contrasts very starkly to probably 20, 30 years ago, how companies were run. How difficult or how often does that come up where you're looking to place somebody or a company reaches out to you to recruit and you're working against their reputation or against their management style or things that maybe not even true anymore, but are out there? Because I know I've worked for companies where we had that issue. It was, hey, we would find a great candidate and then they'd say, oh, is this person still in charge there? Yeah, I'm not going to go work with that person, for example. Do you still see that in this industry from time to time?
Yes, I do. And that can be obviously a major challenge. I share that information back. And sometimes you can't combat that.
Right.
If you establish reputation of being difficult, you can't, no one's going to overcome that over in a day.
Right.
There are leaders out there that have had a reputation that have made big strides in improving their leadership style. They're aware of that. They're self-aware. If you're not self-aware and want to make the improvement, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be left in the dust.
Right.
And there are companies where leadership is toxic
Are,
and they have no inclination to change.
right.
So that's on them.
Yeah. But you're
And
able to,
ideally, yeah, I tend to not recruit for those kind of companies.
right. You're either finding that out very quickly and communicating back those challenges or I would imagine those are often the type of companies that are more hesitant to work with a recruiter anyways. What about some other types of challenges from the candidate side? We talked about, hey, I saw this position in California, but I don't want to move out there. Or people that are insistent on remote only, and maybe they're looking for a role that just doesn't exist. Are there any other challenges that come up often as you're trying to place somebody as you're working with a client?
Sure. Right now, due to the increasing cost of real estate and interest rate, that is causing some major challenges. People are not necessarily interested in selling their home and paying 6, 7, 8% interest rate.
Right.
So that has become an issue for sure.
Relocation.
Yep. Relocation. Yep. There has been in the past year and a half, major incline in salary requests. You see it anywhere from 20 to 40% people are asking.
Yep.
And that's been a major issue also.
So I imagine through that you maybe see an uptick in people showing interest, but it's more difficult to get them to move for a new role and without that increase in pay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And on the client side, on the company side, it's probably the same inflation and cost increase are affecting them on the counter side. So it's more difficult for them to
For
spend
sure.
that money.
Sure. I think this year, at the end of last year, a lot of companies had to review what their salaries were going to be for existing employees
Right.
and new employees. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. They have to be competitive in the marketplace without breaking the bank.
Awesome. So if you were to provide advice for job seekers specifically who are looking to get into this industry, what advice would you have or where would you recommend they start?
I think once again, there are so many schools available to learn the trade, to at least start and understand about how the woodworking industry as a whole, whether it be kitchen cabinetry or architectural millwork or commercial casework. There's a lot of schools available to get you started. I think also doing some research, visiting AWI's websites, look at companies that are located in your region and reaching out to them and sharing that you have interest about the woodworking industry, that you want to learn about project management or estimating or cabinet building, and look for mentorship. I think there is a lot of opportunity out there for that. I think that is paramount. And I think I always ask companies also, what are you doing to give back and help the trades? And a lot of companies are affiliated to the trade schools in their area. We all know that the industry is suffering for cabinet builders and for the trade. Yeah. And so partnership with the schools and promoting them is where it will have to start. But for candidates to want to learn, even talking to me. There are so many people that have reached out to me to talk about the industry, to find industry specific recruiters and talk to them and let them share with you what opportunities are available out there.
Because there's plenty of entry level opportunities. They may not be things that are top of the list recruited for, but you're constantly networking with those companies. And I would imagine very much able to find a fit of, hey, this is a company that is invested in entry level talent in education. You could start there.
Yes. And I occasionally do get calls from cabinet builders, benchmen, and I will tell them who the local shops are in their area and give them the contact names and phone numbers and say, go reach out to them.
Right.
They'd love to hear from you.
What about tips for employers looking to attract and retain top talent? I imagine over the years, as you've recruited and seen many cycles of positions and roles and trends, like what are some common themes that you maybe see that companies could improve upon to both attract and retain talent?
I think the number one thing is honor your promises. That is probably the number one suggestion I would offer to your company. Make do on the promise of pay raises, on the responsibilities, about growth, all of that. I hear that's probably one of the biggest reasons why people want to leave a company is I was promised a raise in 6 months or a review in 3 months and can't sit down with my manager.
Yep.
Unkept promises. The other thing is benefits. Companies have to be able to offer reasonable health insurance out there. Bonus, even if they don't have a 401k or a simple IRA, a bonus has to be implemented, quarterly bonus even. And transparency on company financials, where you are today. I think that is extremely important. And growth potential. The other thing is be self-aware about turnover. What's going on in your organization that you need to readdress or address about turnover and promote within.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And I think for a lot of people, they maybe sound like rudimentary and basic, but you would be surprised how rare it is in this industry specifically for companies to be doing all those things very well or at all. And then your last point there, promoting from within. I think that especially coming from a recruiter who your job is to help place people, but if more people were promoted from within, they wouldn't need to be recruiting so much. And two, they would be developing that talent that even when they are recruiting, it's very hard to find because so many people are finding somebody that fits a role and then holding them there because they feel like they can't afford to lose them, right?
Yep. I'd like to also make technology improvements. Companies that are not evolving with technology, if you lift out the dust, don't improve on automation on their equipment. Once again, I think that offers an unsafe work environment too. You don't upgrade your equipment and develop real training programs and onboarding programs. I think that's very important. There are companies that go through a hiring frenzy to bring on people, and then they sit there going, okay, what do I do next?
Right.
You don't have implemented training programs and make your employees feel valuable and safe.
Yeah. I think those are all really huge points because I would imagine you see this a lot that a company could be offering a lot of those things, but they don't have modern technology or a safe work environment. And it's very easy for a candidate to look and see all the other companies that do and say, of course, I'd rather go work for them. And I see opportunity there. And so I think as a business owner, a lot of times you're looking at, was this new saw or this upgraded equipment going to make me money on the front end, but you're maybe not considering, hey, is this going to help me retain talent? Is this going to help me maintain outside of just the efficiency factor? I think there's a lot of other aspects there. And for most people in this industry, labor is one of your biggest line items, one of your biggest expenses, and it goes up when you have to rapidly replace it without notice.
Thing that I'm seeing quite often too is the lack of succession planning. Company owners that are nearing retirement and don't necessarily have family members that are engaged in business. You have to have a succession plan or at least communicate with the employees what the plan is. Are people going to be employed or not employed? That's another big reason why people leave their current employer. They're in limbo.
And they get nervous and with not knowing. And so they're going to go somewhere where they see more security.
It helps me.
Yeah.
But then
Awesome. What are some other strategies that both employers and individuals in this industry can build strong professional relationships? It's obviously a huge part of what you do is networking and facilitating that. You mentioned WI and stuff. I know we've got AWFS coming up, but what are some of the best ways people can get out there and engage and network in this industry?
once again, are you talking about on the company side, ownership side, or candidate side in
Both,
general?
but yeah, we can start with the company side.
Think developing mentorship programs, best business practice programs, look outside of the traditional networking organizations. I think what you are doing, Jacob, in promoting the industry of these podcasts is fantastic. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
And we had discussed this before. There's not a lot of women in the industry. How do we promote women in this industry? There are a lot of fabulous women that I have met and have learned a lot of things from. I think that would be a sector of promoting. And we need the involvement of the men that own these companies. So I think that would be helpful. But once again, maybe other people doing podcasts to promote other sectors of the industry.
Yeah.
Using technology, using social media is what's going to help. But I think mentorship programs will help tremendously. Get involved in your community, get involved with your schools. Nothing's going to get better if company leaders don't get involved with their community.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. I appreciate the compliment and you bringing it on. That was definitely one of the reasons bringing you on. But I think that there is a lot of low hanging fruit in our industry in how to network. And it is just as simple as a lot of companies have some sort of online presence, but it's very basic and very much just like, hey, here's a project we've done, which could be any millwork company to some extent. And I don't want to knock everybody, but I think people don't realize the opportunity they have from a culture, from a recruiting standpoint with their online presence, that you don't even have to fly to Vegas to be able to network with people. So LinkedIn, your website, your social media is a huge asset for hiring and recruiting and developing that presence that people know you exist when they're looking for a job, and to know that, hey, maybe I want to go work for them. We haven't talked about this yet, but when you are recruiting, how important is that online presence in a candidate when they're saying, hey, am I interested in taking this offer from company A versus company B? And them being able to I see that they post company events, or I see that they post there's tangible evidence of, hey, what type of culture do they have? The type of people that work there, they can see the faces and the things that they do. Does that make a big impact in a candidate's decision when they're deciding whether to accept an offer?
That's a great question. And to be fair, I have not come across that topic. Right. And that could be on me. I learned just something new with you to ask that question, if that is of importance. So candidates are always instructed or take the initiative to always do their research about a company online, using company website and Googling seeing if there's any YouTube videos posted, going on Indeed perhaps, looking at former or current employee reviews, but looking at other social media presence, that's a great question.
And I would imagine it's different for the younger generation of the millennial generation. And now we're getting to where we've got Gen Z and even younger coming into this industry. But there's still a heavy weight towards later career, I would imagine, that are filling the roles in this industry. And from my perspective, that's one of the biggest worries and emergencies in this industry is like we have so much of the later generations that are going to be retiring or are retiring, and there's not this backfill for them. But companies making a concerted effort to speak to who they need to be recruiting and not waiting until you need to fill that role and then trying to convince them, hey, look, we have culture. We are a great place to work. So I think that if I were to just summarize one thing, just this is my soapbox for companies using your online presence, your marketing, thinking of it as a recruiting tool, not just for clients, but for talent. And also as a way to retain talent, because employees love to reshare their company's posts and say, hey, this is where I work. Look at where I work is, what we do, the work we do, the stuff we do, right? But not just, hey, look at this wall panel we made, or this desk, or this. The work is great, but that's not as I think companies too often think that what they do is unique and their differentiating factor. And more so it's the people, their culture, who they do it with and how they do it that matters from a retention and a talent perspective.
When I go through a job order and I, especially with a new client, and I want to know, why does somebody want to come and work for your company? What is your sizzle?
Yeah.
I asked that question, what is your sizzle on my candidates also? But I think that would be a great segue of, do you promote what's so great about your company for potential new employees on your
Yep.
website? That's a great point.
And the bar is very low, guys. I want to point that out. Like, it's not hard to do this. And if there was one of those things that's like low hanging fruit that like, oh, you don't have to hire a marketing director. You don't have to it's a lot of work and it's a lot of expense to go to universities and go to company day and go to conferences and all this stuff. It is not a lot to take a picture at your company event and post it online. It's not a lot of work I guarantee you, find somebody in your company that is familiar with social media and they would be happy to do it for you. So that's my soapbox for the day, but awesome. I think we covered a lot of really good points. I think definitely towards the end, the evidence, the advice you provided there in things that companies should be doing to retain talent is huge. Benefits, salary, and technology, and making improvements, as well as giving them a path for upwards movement in their career. I think that is one of the biggest things that's missing in this industry. One of the things I was always working very hard in my roles with management to create for engineers specifically is, hey, you don't have to go be a project manager to make a decent living in this industry. Can we create that within engineering and with a path that matches your skills? Are there any other final thoughts or recommendations you have that we didn't get to yet that you think would be important to share?
I think one thing I want to touch on is on LinkedIn. I make connections on LinkedIn to have a conversation. In what I do, timing is everything, right? And so it doesn't necessarily have to be talking about an opportunity today, or I'm not a recruiter that wants to leverage what I do in pushing somebody out of a job where they are happy. But it's to generate a conversation, talk about where you are today, where you may want to be 5 years from now, or you may know of other people that I should talk to. It's just a quick conversation.
Yeah.
So I would like to say that if I connect with you, talk to me.
Yeah.
You
Don't be
never know.
scared or hesitant. Yeah. No, that's good advice. I think that a lot of people who maybe don't spend a lot of time on there might be nervous about how to interact on LinkedIn and what that means when you're reaching out. So yeah, definitely. There's two questions that I particularly like to ask every guest. I want to get your thought on these. We've talked a little bit about it, but the first one What do you see changing in our industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see. You touched on this before. I think you're going to see a major exodus of tenured professionals out and a lot of younger individuals coming into the industry that are going to make a name for themselves. We see younger individuals making a name for themselves now, but you're going to see more of that for sure. And I think wave of new technology is going to be very important. And it's going to be part of the day-to-day millwork industry, whether it be energy or other programs like it, and different types of automation equipment, perhaps. I think you're going to see a lot of that. And individuals that are wanting to take the bull by the horns and prove themselves. I am seeing that a lot more than I was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
In the sense that they want to be mentored and trained about the industry and led about how to manage moving forward in the industry. So I see a big wave of that.
Awesome. On the flip side, what do you see staying the same?
On the flip side, the older leadership style, unfortunately, people that don't want to change and improve, and remote employees. I think that's going to be a continued landscape that could be an uphill battle. We will see.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that both of
What do you
those.
think? What do you think?
What do I think? Yeah, I think all that is true. I think that there's going to be a huge, and there already is, we're seeing this, but I think that there's going to be a lot of turnover in ownership. I think that can go a number of ways. My hope is that it doesn't lead to too many companies going out of business, that there becomes some sort of succession plan. But I see a lot of opportunity from that in young people in the industry who need to fill those roles and can step up. I think what's positive, what you said about you're seeing more people that are taking a concerted effort to be mentored, to find opportunities to learn and to improve themselves. That's what we need. That's what I want to see, is people that take what we do seriously and not just, I ended up here and this is a job, but it's not a career. And we need more people that see this as a career. We need more companies that consciously make a career path for those people. Because if too many people just see the only path to success in this industry is entrepreneurship and owning their own business, people have to work in those businesses. People have to do the work. We need entrepreneurs. We need business owners. We need good leaders. And we need people that are willing to take the risk and be owners. But more than that is we need people that want to make a change in this industry and want to continue to do great work. So I think that there's been this push for Industry 4.0, and I think that's given people a false sense of security in that, hey, we're going to just go towards automation. We don't have to continue the craft side. And that has led to the skills gap that we have now. It's interesting to know that here are my different guest perspectives, because everybody's perspective is also very much colored by their niche in the industry, their experience. And so hearing your perspective from talking to many companies, a lot of my guests are just owners or people that work in a company. And so they have a limited vantage point. And so talking with somebody who talks to many companies is always very valuable. I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me and come on. I think that there's a lot of valuable insight that you shared today that people will be able to get from this. If people do want to find out more about you, to contact you, to reach out about Millwork Recruiting Source, what's the best way for them to contact you or find out more?
By phone, 262-977-3152. Find me on LinkedIn, obviously, or email Vicky@millworkrecruitingsource.com.
Awesome. Thank you again, Vicky, for joining me, and hopefully we will have you on again in the near future.
Thanks for having me. Keep up the good work, Jacob.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.